Okay, so to write the MLA format, but in the header, you need to just write your assignment number, so assignment number one, and make sure it's in Times New Roman size 12 font. You just put that in the header, sort of centered. Assignment number one and or assignment number two depends what you're writing. And the footer, you write again in Times New Roman size font 12. You write on the left hand side the page number, so page one, and then you insert one of and insert the page number. And then on the right side, you write your index number, which will be provided to you on the day of the exam. For now, just put index number. The main five parts of the called essay are the introduction paragraph, the three body paragraphs, and the conclusion. The main part of the introduction is the hook, the text summary, and the thesis statement. Body paragraph one is your problem paragraph from the thesis statement. You need to have a hook, a topic sentence, or your main argument sentence, textual evidence to support that topic sentence, and then a statement of significance. And you do that again. Once again, you have like a little transition in between, so it flows nicely. And then once again, you start with a topic sentence, and then you include a second piece of textual evidence to support that topic sentence or main argument, and then you end it off with the statement of significance again, basically similar to what was done in the first round of this paragraph. And then you end it with a nice little transition statement and move on to the secondary paragraph, which is the same thing as the first. But this is the reaction paragraph, so the reaction part of the thesis statement. So again, you have the hook, the topic sentence or main argument, and then textual evidence to support that main argument, and a statement of significance to illustrate the figurative meaning rather than the literary meaning of the textual evidence. Again, you include a nice transition statement so it all flows, and then again, topic sentence for the next argument, and then your other piece of textual evidence. I'd label textual evidence one and two, and then statement of significance number two, once again, to discuss the figurative element, not the literary element. And then another transition statement just to wrap it up, make sure the flow is nice. And then you move on to your third body paragraph, which is your outcome paragraph from your thesis statement. So the outcome of your thesis. Once again, you start with the hook, include the topic sentence for your main debate, main argument, include the textual evidence number one, and then the statement of significance to discuss the figurative element. And then again, you include the nice transition statement, something which is makes it all connected together and flows and reads really easily. And you move on to your second piece of evidence. You introduce it with your topic sentence, include the textual evidence that from your reading, and then another statement of significance, and then end it off with the last transition statement. And then you move into your conclusion. And in the conclusion once again has a little hook, just like every other paragraph, and then you restate your thesis or rephrase the thesis statement in it. It can't be copied word for word, or else you get bad marks. And then you end it off with a clincher, something that the reader will remember and think about, or something like a closing statement. So now to annotate this piece of text, we have just this small excerpt from the novel itself. It starts off in the living room as Gregor saw the crack in the door. First thing I highlighted is the crack in the door, and that is a piece of textual evidence that can be used to say that he's acting without emotional courage, because usually it's the crack in the door is a symbol right now for how he's acting without courage. Because usually, if you're courageous, you wouldn't be spying through a crack in the door. You'd open the door and look with your head full out. Then, if you continue on further in the next sentence, now perhaps just reading aloud, about which his sister, always spoken and written to him, had recently fallen out of their general routine. This is also, this diction is also like used to describe the shock that is the family's going through right now, that their general routine that they would usually do is all broken. So that is a piece of textual evidence as diction. And again, this word highlighted yellow, still, is it's like they're all in shock. They don't know what's basically happened. So it's another piece of diction. And then continuing on, he felt a great pride that he had been able to provide such a life in a beautiful apartment like this for his parents and his sister. Um, that is also a piece of textual evidence that can be used as symbolism, because like all he is in the eyes of his family is just a way of money, and that's what he thinks of himself as well. Like he's just a source of income. He's just the breadwinner. But then if you continue on, just the next sentence, come to a horrible end. So that another piece of diction which shows that like Gregor is sort of accepting his situation. Like he knows that it's come to a horrible end. It's all over now. So he's accepted his situation and he's sort of acting completely without any courage at all, because he's moved to accept it rather than fix what's going on and fix his illness. And then once again, Gregor preferred to set himself moving and crawled up and down in his room. This also shows him acting without emotional courage. It can be seen as both diction and symbolism, because first of all, the way it's described, like he would just forget about what's happening, so he has no courage to deal with what's happening. And also the act of him moving up and down the room, sort of like pacing. When you're worried, you usually pace up and down the room trying to find a solution. So he's pacing right now, and that is a symbolism of his worry and his acting without emotional courage. And then in the last sort of piece here, Gregor immediately took a position under a couch. That also shows symbolism where he's scared and he has zero emotional courage. And now to see if we've done this correctly, each thing that we've annotated should have a sort of like a piece, a literary device with it. It shouldn't just be like any highlighted piece of event. It should have a literary device attached to it, so it's a proper piece of evidence. And everything that I explained before has a literary device. All of these are attached with either diction or symbolism or personification, something like that. And all this evidence has to be arranged in chronological order. So you can't put this last Gregor immediately took up a position under the couch before the first thing that's mentioned, where he was looking through the crack in the door. The first piece of textual evidence is the diction, such as monstrous vermin. The second piece is the symbolism of how Gregor was worried about his work and not so worried about being a bug. And then the third piece is the imagery created by the four gray and drab walls. Number four is the personification. Gregor has always been a bug, but he was described with some human-like characteristics, such as having pain and whatnot. Number five is symbolism again, the symbolism of the hospital that can be seen from Gregor's window, but he's not brought there to be cured or anything. Diction again for number six, he refers to himself as it rather than with like some personal pronouns such as me or I. Number seven is symbolism. The violin started as a symbolism for status, but it ended off as a symbolism for hope and life. Number eight is the understatement, how Gregor is very understated throughout the entire book, but while everyone else is exaggerated and acting with exaggerated behavior. The ninth piece is the symbolism of the woman wearing the fur, the picture of the woman wearing the fur on the wall, and what it means to Gregor, the desire for status. And then the last piece, again, symbolism that the parents do not cure Gregor but start to work, as shows the meaning that Gregor has in their lives and how he was just a source of income rather than actual like person in their eyes. The practice unit topic that we'll be using to deconstruct is discuss the ideas developed by the text creator in your chosen text about the role that emotional courage plays when an individual experiences separation. So the stem words of this thesis statement, highlighted in red, is the role, and the key words highlighted in yellow are emotional courage, again highlighted in yellow, and separation, also highlighted in yellow. Now, if it's a how or why question, by just doing some quick analysis, we can see that it's actually a how question because it's asking about the role or how emotional courage plays a role when an individual faces separation. The main character of study is Gregor from Metamorphosis. The problem that Gregor faces based on this unit topic is it says in the unit topic itself is when an individual experiences separation. The reaction is one may react without emotional courage by accepting one's circumstances. So this unit topic was negated. The outcome is leading to a lost sense of identity and lost sense of self. The thesis statement now, if we just want to create it, you just put the problem, reaction, and outcome together and include like a transition statement. So yeah, a thesis statement must include the problem, reaction, and outcome that you sort of like deconstruct based on the unit topic, and just include the a transition statement. So uh, through this character's development, uh, the author develops the idea that then your problem, reaction, and outcome. So now, the thesis statement that we have constructed, you basically just have to now follow all the things that we've already written and put them all together. So through Gregor's development, Kafka, or through Gregor's experience, Kafka develops the idea that when an individual experiences separation, one may react without emotional courage by accepting one's circumstances, leading to a lost sense of self. So to complete the planning page, what you need to write in the first section where it says literary text and text creator, you just write the novel or short story or play that you're going to be writing on and the author that wrote that piece of text. So if for example, I will be writing on The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. And then in the second section of the planning page where you put your personal reflection on choice of literary text, first you start off with the unit topic is asking the writer to consider, and then right after consider you put your rephrased how or why question. So in this case, the unit topic is asking writers to consider how emotional courage plays a role when an individual faces separation. Then you continue on, you put your character of study. So Gregor's development helps me answer this question because he faces, and then you put their problem, reaction, and outcome. So because he faces separation and reacts without emotional courage, leading to a lost sense of self. And then just ending it off, you put the piece of textual evidence that you're going to support your main arguments with. So for example, the diction of monstrous vermin, the symbolism of how he's not worried about being a bug, but actually worried about his work, the personification of how he's always been a bug but was described with human-like characteristics, and how the diction of how he refers to himself as it, and how the symbolism of how his parents do not cure him but start to work instead. That's just some of the pieces of textual evidence. You have to include all the piece of textual evidence that you're going to address in your essay in the last section of the planning page. And then um, how to find a metaphor for hooks and clinchers. So basically, an extended metaphor is a metaphor that is developed extensively throughout the essay. Rather than having many metaphors for your hooks and clinchers, a single metaphor is developed in each hook and clincher. The extended metaphor can be based on a universal idea, an allegory, or a philosophy. An extended metaphor that can be used for the metamorphosis is the allegory represented by Gregor. Gregor represents the cycle of life that everyone goes through. He worked his entire life in order to gain status and to provide for his family, but as soon as he was no longer available to work or earn money, he was looked down upon and shunned by his family, until he eventually died and they were able to move on with their lives. Something similar is seen in humanity and our day-to-day lives, as we all work until we are unable to anymore and have to retire. Most of us are often sent to retirement homes after this and waiting for them to pass away so they can be relieved from their burden. This allegory can be used as an extended metaphor for the metamorphosis. A good summary always is short and concise, but also focuses on the main plot of the text, not the figurative meaning, but rather the straight literal meaning. It should be around 4 to 5 sentences long. and it should focus on the literal meaning rather than the figurative meaning, or on the plot rather than the figurative meaning of the plot. So now a practice summary that is created for this text would be: in the novel, or in Franz Kafka's novel, The Metamorphosis, Gregor, a traveling salesman, wakes up one morning completely transformed into a bug-like creature. His family, who he is the sole breadwinner for, lock him in his room. The rest of the family members begin working themselves in efforts to earn some money to generate some income for themselves and the family. Gregor's sister, Greta, cares for Gregor initially, but quickly starts to use him as a power grab and as a stepping stone to power. One day, Gregor leaves his room after hearing his sister play some violin for people who were living with the family at the time, and this leads to Gregor receiving a fatal blow in his back from his father, which leads to his untimely death. The body paragraph that we'll be focusing on is the first body paragraph, which is the problem part of the thesis. So the first paragraph should focus on the problem described in the thesis. In this case, an individual, Gregor, faces separation. So the topic sentence and the hook and the topic sentence highlighted in red. When faced with difficulties in life, it is essential to have a strong backbone that one can fall on. If this backbone does not exist, or one's support system decides to separate and neglect the individual facing troubles, it can result in the ultimate loss of self for said individual. Gregor's family, who he needed most in his time of struggle and difficulty, decide to separate him from themselves and to continue on with their lives as if nothing had ever happened. So that's the hook and the topic sentence. And then highlighted in yellow is a piece of textual evidence that we'll be deconstructing. So this is demonstrated through the family locking Gregor inside his room. That's all the textual evidence we need. And then we'll move on to the statement of significance, which is highlighted in blue. So that is, although Gregor is physically shunned in his room, the locking is also a symbol for the family barring Gregor from their lives and acting as if he does not exist. Usually, Gregor kept his door locked from the inside while he was at home, as he did not want to be disturbed by his family while he was resting. Similarly now, his door was locked, but now is locked from the outside, as his family did not want to be bothered or disturbed by Gregor or his illness. This symbol reveals the family's true feeling toward Gregor. He is not worth anything to them without his income, so they separate him and seclude him from the rest of the family and from their endeavors. They do not see Gregor as part of the family, but just use him for his money. As soon as Gregor's ability to work and earn money were removed, the family did not care for him or show him any respect, as demonstrated by the symbol of locking him in his room. This impacts Gregor because it causes him to fall further away from acting with emotional courage, as he understands that his family has no regard for him other than his money. So basically, this statement of significance is a lot longer than everything else because it deconstructs even such a small piece of textual evidence. That's one sentence, and it has to deconstruct it all. So the statement of significance has to attach a literary device to the piece of textual evidence. So here it's a symbol and symbolism, and also it also mentions what it reveals about the character and how it impacts the character. And then the same thing for the second piece of textual evidence. You started off with a transition. So furthermore, Gregor's separation from his family is also seen through. That's our transition between our two pieces of textual evidence that's highlighted in red. And then right after it, highlighted in yellow, is the piece of textual evidence that, again, we'll be deconstructing. So that piece of textual evidence is the family not asking for Gregor's input before making a decision. So then highlighted in blue again is the statement of significance. So since Gregor is the breadwinner of the family, it would be considered normal to ask for his input before making a major decision. But as soon as Gregor underwent his transformation, he was removed from sharing his input when the family made major decisions, such as when Grete and the mother began working. This reveals the disconnect and separation Gregor underwent after he had his metamorphosis. This impacts Gregor because it leads to his further alienation and disconnect from the family. The statement of significance is a lot longer than both the topic sentence and the piece of textual evidence because it needs to deconstruct everything, the entire piece of textual evidence. So this literary device attached to this is diction and symbolism, because the family is not asking for Gregor's input whatsoever. So it shows that he's not important to their decisions anymore since he's not earning money. And once again, it attaches that literary device, and it also mentions what it reveals about the character and how it impacts the character. The first category in the Carlt essay rubric is thought and understanding, and it's related to how effectively the student's ideas are related to the assignment question. So how effective the thesis is in relative to the assigned unit topic, and also the quality of the literary interpretations and attaching literary devices to your piece of textual evidence in the statements of significance to show the thorough understanding of the text relative to the unit topic. And to score 100% in this topic, in this section, you need to have insightful ideas and that are carefully considered, and you have to demonstrate comprehension of the subtle distinctions in the literary text and the topic. And literary interpretations are perspective and illuminating. So your statements of significance need to have strong literary devices attached to the piece of textual evidence, and you also need to be paying attention to all the hidden details in the text that many other people would often ignore. Then that's how you score a 5 in thought and understanding. The second section is the supporting evidence section, and it relates to the selection and quality of evidence, and also how well the supporting evidence is employed, developed, and synthesized to support the student's ideas. To score a 5 out of 5 in this section, you need to have support that is precise and astutely chosen to reinforce the ideas in your text and in a convincing way. A valid connection to your ideas, it needs to be efficiently maintained in order to achieve a 5 out of 5. The third section is form and structure, and it's related to the manner in which the ideas are focused, arranged, and shaped in response to the assignment, and how well a unifying effect or controlling idea is developed and maintained. And to score a 5 out of 5 in this section, you need to have a judicious arrangement of ideas and details to contribute to a fluent discussion that is developed very skillfully. The unifying effect also needs to be controlling and effectively presented and integrated into your essay. The fourth section is matters of choice, and it relates to how effectively you choose to enhance the communication in your essay. To score a 5 out of 5, you need to have precise diction, and your synaptic structures are used effectively and sometimes very polished. And your stylistic choices contribute to create a skillfully composed essay with a convincing voice. The fifth section relates to matters of correctness, and it relates to the sentence construction, the usage, the grammar, and mechanics all used throughout your essay. This sentence construction needs to be complete, consistent, subordinate, and coordinated. The accurate usage of words according to their convention and meaning. For grammar, the subject and verb, pronoun, antecedent agreement, pronoun reference, and consistent use of tense. And for mechanics, you need to have proper punctuation, spelling, and capitalization. To score a 5 out of 5, you need to demonstrate confident control of correct sentence construction, usage, grammar, and mechanics. And also, to mark this essay, first we'll start off with the introduction. The introduction is actually quite good. It has all the necessary components except for one major one. It's actually missing a thesis statement at the end. So this essay basically has no thesis statement. Otherwise, the introduction is quite good. It has a nice opening statement, a nice hook, and then it also has a summary, and it's all formatted properly. It introduces the genre, the name of the text, and the author of the text. So that's all fine and great. but what is missing, a major component of the thesis of the introduction, is the thesis statement. And since there is no thesis statement, um, they, unfortunately, the student can't get higher than a 65%. So that is quite a big blunder. In the first body paragraph, and with all the rest of them as well, the ideas get to be quite general. So, like for example, in the first body paragraph, with Cassio getting the job Iago felt he deserved, he set out to make friends with Othello so later he can begin his backstabbing. That's quite general. There's not much textual evidence to support that, at least provided in this paragraph, and it's not very thorough idea. And also to continue on, there's no literary device mentioned other than ambition, which is not really a literary device. He could have used symbolism or diction or imagery, some of those sort of literary devices, and attach it to a statement of significance. Also, yeah, the statement of significance needs some work. It needs to be more thorough, again, like including that literary device and also how it impacts the main character of study and what it reveals about the story and the main character of study. The same thing follows in the second body paragraph. Although it is quite good to read, it has quite general ideas and it doesn't attach many literary devices. And again, the statement of significance needs a lot of work. Same thing as the first body paragraph. It doesn't really mention any literary device in how it impacts the character, what it reveals about the character or the story itself. And it is quite short as well. It needs to be a bit longer. And the interpretation throughout the entire essay is quite general. It's not very thorough. There's not many very hidden details that are discussed. It's kind of just a plot summary, because there's not very many hidden details that could be interpreted. The interpretation needs a lot of work as well. And the connection to the unit topic, although is very well maintained, always is linking back to the unit topic and that unifying idea, which is a good thing. And the essay overall is very easy to read and very easy to follow. It doesn't get like very confusing at some points, but the sentence composition could be a lot better. The sentences are very basic. They're not very complex. They're like a couple of words and then a new sentence starts. That's pretty basic. It needs to be more complex, and so they can create a more thorough idea. And then finally, the voice and the flow of the essay is actually quite well developed. It always has a easy to read and it flows very well, and the voice is very confident throughout the entire essay. Two tips and tricks to creating an insightful essay. Number one is to analyze and interpret hidden ideas and unique pieces of evidence in the essay. That will create a more insightful essay if you discuss pieces of evidence that are usually not brought to the table. And it's not the typical, if you provide even one hidden detail in one of your body paragraphs, that can change a lot because it's something which is very insightful in the eyes of the marker. And then number two, I would say, is to read the essay over a couple of times and to make sure that the flow is really good and that the essay is easy to read and follow. Because if the essay is really difficult to follow, then your ideas can get sort of lost in the mix. But if you make an essay that is easy to read and easy to follow, then it will be easier to keep your textual evidence and statements of significance available for the marker to sort of find. It's not lost in a bunch of fluff,